Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. On a sunny morning over the ocean, off the coast of Isar Island, someone was watching the patrol plane. After seeing the patrol plane leave the island, the man began to move his boat. Inside, a boy named Eric and his stepfather Ben were preparing. Both intended to go parasailing with a parachute towed by the boat. After feeling safe enough, they both began to float. Eric really wanted to see the dinosaurs up close while carrying a video camera. Eric and Ben tried to record towards the island, however, at the base of a very thick fog, something suddenly appeared. Eric and Ben felt that something strange was happening with the boat that was towing them. After the boat emerged from the mist, it was discovered that all the crew members were dead. The boat lost control and collided with the reefs. Fortunately, Ben managed to untie the rope that bound him and was forced to make an emergency landing on the island. Elsewhere, Alan was playing with one of Ellie's little children. Moments later, Ellie's husband returned home from work. Ellie and her husband named Eli invited Alan to dinner with them. At this moment, Alan told Ellie about one of his recent discoveries regarding velociraptor fossils. Alan told Ellie that, in fact, velociraptors are a very intelligent type of dinosaur. In fact, Alan discovered that inside the velociraptor's skull, there is a sound cavity that can resonate. This means that velociraptors can communicate with each other, they can speak their own language. Later that night, Alan said goodbye to head home. Ellie then said that Alan was her longtime best friend. If Alan needed help, Ellie would be happy to assist him. The next day, Alan held a seminar about his discovery of fossilized velociraptors that can communicate with each other. However, the audience seemed uninterested in hearing him. The audience urged Alan to stop examining the dinosaur fossils. Alan said he would never return to the island for any reason. In the afternoon, Alan met with his men who were examining the dinosaur fossils. There, Alan met his subordinate named Billy. Billy was in charge of the archaeological site. Billy then showed something he had printed with a 3D printer, the sound cavity belonging to the velociraptor. After printing, Billy blew into it and, of course, made exactly the same sound as the velociraptors Alan had heard. Alan was amazed to hear this. Suddenly, from behind, a man named Paul appeared. He said he was a big fan of Alan, and then invited him to dinner with his family. Later that night, Alan and Billy met Paul and his wife Amanda at a restaurant. Alan, feeling suspicious, asked Paul to tell him the true purpose for inviting him to dinner. Amanda then explained that they intended to ask Alan and Billy to be their guides on a flight over the dinosaur island, because Paul thought it was a wedding anniversary gift. Paul wanted to make the moment special. Alan immediately rejected the crazy idea. After all, they definitely wouldn't get permission to fly in the desired area. Paul then explained that he was the head of a leading company and had many connections in the government. For him, it was an easy matter. Paul then pulled out a blank check. Paul would give any amount of money as long as Alan was his guide to see the dinosaurs. Alan and Billy were tempted and agreed to help Paul and his wife. The next day, they flew to the desired island. After a few hours of flight over the ocean, they reached their destination. The plane made a low pass over the site. Billy was amazed to see a herd of dinosaurs running below him. Alan then explained the different species of dinosaurs that were present, but no one paid attention to him. It turns out that Paul planned to land the aircraft on the island. Upon hearing this, Alan immediately became upset and stopped them from doing so. Then, suddenly, one of Paul's men hit Alan, knocking him unconscious. After Alan regained consciousness, it turned out they had landed the plane on Isla Island. Alan and Billy exited the plane. Amanda was heard shouting using a microphone calling Eric and the band. Alan then told Amanda to be quiet, as it was very dangerous. Suddenly, they heard a very loud sound. It was the sound of dinosaurs coming from the forest. Paul's men appeared running in fear. They all ran to the plane and began starting the aircraft to escape. It turned out that one of Paul's men was still outside. The man asks the group to stop, but the pilot refused to obey. Suddenly, a Spinosaurus appeared that immediately devoured the man. The Spinosaurus also managed to damage the plane's engine. As a result, the plane was forced to make an emergency landing and got stuck in a tree. Fortunately, everyone managed to survive and wondered who had a satellite phone because the plane's communication system was damaged. One of the pilots borrowed Paul's satellite phone. When the pilot tried to call for help using the satellite phone, he suddenly felt a very high vibration. It happened that the Spinosaurus was already there. The Spinosaurus damaged the plane's cockpit and bit one of the pilots. The pilot was finally pulled by the Spinosaurus and eaten alive. Everyone panicked and brought the plane to the ground. The Spinosaurus was still not giving up and continued trying to stomp on the wreckage of the plane, which had begun to disintegrate. Everyone tried to get out. They ran to avoid the Spinosaurus's pursuit. They also entered a very dense forest. After feeling safe enough, they walked through the forest. Then, suddenly, a T-Rex appeared in front of them that was having lunch. Everyone ran again. Now they were being chased by the T-Rex. Along the way, suddenly, a Spinosaurus that was still pursuing the group appeared. Seeing that there were other predators around, the T-Rex immediately shifted to attack the Spinosaurus, but due to its smaller size, the Spinosaurus easily killed the T-Rex. After successfully avoiding the Spinosaurus's pursuit, Alan forced Paul to tell the truth about his intentions to come to that place. Paul confessed that the real reason they came to the island was that they wanted to find their son, Eric, who had disappeared a few weeks ago. Eric had disappeared with his stepfather, Ben, Amanda's new husband. Amanda and Paul had been divorced for a long time. Paul deliberately invited Alan because he thought Alan knew the island very well, as he had visited it before. Alan explained that he had never been to Iser. The island he had visited was called Isla Nublar. An irritated Alan then invited Billy to move to the beach to try to find help. Paul's frightened men suggested they follow him to safety. They returned to the plane's wreckage and took items that could still be used. Sneakily, Billy then asked about Paul's business. Paul then admitted he was not someone so important. He was just an ordinary paint salesman. Alan became even more upset because he was stuck on the island and couldn't get anything done. Alan then invited the others to move toward the beach. Along the way, they found Eric's parachute hanging from a tree. They also found Eric's video camera. After replacing the battery, they watched the last footage recorded by Eric. Based on the footage, it was learned that Eric managed to land safely on the island. Alan then told Billy to keep the parachute just in case it was useful. When the parachute was lowered, a human skull suddenly appeared. It was Ben's body. Amanda was horrified and ran away seeing her new husband dead. Paul then chased Amanda, who was hysterical. After managing to calm Amanda down, Paul saw something strange and also called the others to come. It turned out that around them was a pile of velociraptor eggs. It turned out they were in a nest. Fearing the worst, they continued their journey through the nesting area until they reached the ruins of an abandoned engine building. They entered to check the place. Inside, Amanda checked the telephone, but unfortunately, it was no longer working. They went deeper and grabbed some food from the cupboard. They then entered the room where the engine company cloned all kinds of dinosaurs. While looking around, a velociraptor that was also there suddenly appeared. Everyone panicked and ran to hide. They entered a cage, but the velociraptor managed to open the door where Billy and Amanda were. As the velociraptor tried to climb up, Billy and Amanda pushed the door and managed to trap the beast, then all ran away. Alan noticed that the velociraptor was making a sound to call the others. The group ran to the forest and the freed beast continued calling others of its kind. Alan and the others tried to run into the forest. Alan grabbed the backpack with the camera left by Billy. They also separated and climbed the trees. It turned out that the velociraptor managed to get Paul's men at the top of the tree. Billy, Paul, and his wife tried to call their men who were lying below. It turned out that the man was still alive. When Amanda was about to go down to help him, the velociraptor that was still there appeared from below. It turned out that such beasts deliberately set a trap to lure them down. They were indeed setting a trap somewhere else. Alan saw a velociraptor calling another of its kind. Then the other velociraptors killed Paul's men and left them. While Alan was checking the situation, a velociraptor suddenly appeared in front of him, and it didn't take long for him to be surrounded by several velociraptors. Suddenly, someone fired smoke and drove the velociraptors away. The person then pulled Alan and invited him to their hideout, and it turned out that the person was Eric, who was still alive. Alan then told Eric that he was on the island with his parents, and they were looking for him. Eric also knew Alan because he admired him. Eric then gave Alan the food supplies he had found in the engine building, so he could survive for 8 weeks on the island. At night, Paul and the others rested in a tree. The next morning, Alan and Eric saw an abandoned boat at the base of a cliff. Alan invited Eric to move towards it. Elsewhere, Billy invited the others to move toward the beach, according to Alan's previous instructions. While Alan and Eric were walking through the forest, Eric heard a strange sound. It was the sound of his father's satellite phone. Eric approached the sound while calling for his father. Elsewhere, Amanda also heard Eric shout. They then quickly moved toward the source of the sound. Eric and his parents finally reunited, but they were separated by a tall fence. Billy also reunited with Alan, who was now carrying his camera backpack. Paul asked how Eric knew they were nearby. Eric then replied that he heard his father's phone. Paul was confused because earlier his phone had been used by the pilot to call for help. Suddenly, behind them appeared the Spinosaurus that had previously eaten the pilot. Alan and Eric ran as fast as they could to avoid the Spinosaurus's pursuit. They both managed to slip through the fence, but apparently, the Spinosaurus could easily break the fence. They ran to the building in front of them and immediately locked the door. They also managed to escape the Spinosaurus's pursuit. Inside the building, Billy continued asking for his backpack back. Alan, suspicious of the situation, opened the backpack and then discovered that inside were 2 velociraptor eggs. No wonder the velociraptor that had been chasing them previously was acting strangely. Surely, the velociraptor had its eyes on the eggs, without the intention of eating them. Billy explained that he had to do this so he could sell them at a high price to fund his archaeological site. Alan was furious. Even if Billy's intentions were good, it was a huge mistake. It was exactly like the engine company, which made the mistake of bringing dinosaurs back to life. When Alan was about to throw the egg away, he hesitated. Alan realized that even if he threw the egg away, the velociraptors would still have them as targets, as the velociraptors thought they still had the egg. Alan then told the others that there was a boat at the bottom of the gorge that could help them reach the coast. They moved through the mountain, passing through the ruins of the stairs that were there, but as they were not maintained, the stairs crumbled beneath their feet. Alan told the others to cross the bridge one by one, fearing that it would collapse. When it was Eric's turn, suddenly from the fog, a pteranodon appeared and immediately kidnapped Eric. Everyone panicked and ran after the pteranodon. Billy then took the initiative to jump using the parachute he had obtained earlier. Before Eric, who was trapped in the pteranodon's lair, became food, Billy managed to save him. Elsewhere, the pteranodon also set its sights on Alan and the others. Meanwhile, Billy and Eric were also being pursued by 3 pteranodons. As Alan tried to escape the pteranodons, the bridge they were on collapsed and sent them into the river. Fortunately, the wreckage fell on top of the pteranodon that was chasing them. The trio then swam to the riverbank. Billy released Eric into the river because his parachute had a hole and could not be controlled, so he ended up getting stuck on the cliff's edge by the river and fell into the water. Eric finally reunited with his family, but elsewhere it was Billy's turn to be attacked by the pteranodon. Billy told the others to get out and take care of themselves. Alan then invited Paul and the others to flee the place. They finally reached an abandoned boat. Fortunately, the boat's engine could still be turned on. They went down the river toward the beach, and Alan looked devastated because he lost Billy, and thought he shouldn't question his friend's choices. Alan believed Billy truly had the best intentions, even if he had gone down the wrong path by stealing velociraptor eggs. The group passed by a large number of dinosaurs looking for food in the fields. Later that night, Paul heard something. It was the sound of his satellite phone. It was coming from a pile of dinosaur feces. They hurried to find the phone in the pile of feces before it stopped ringing. They finally managed to grab the phone. Moments later, a red T-Rex appeared on the scene, but strangely did not attack Alan and the others. Then they continued on their way. Upon inspection, the phone credit was only valid for 1 call. At the edge of the boat, Eric saw the fish moving strangely, as if they were afraid of something. Alan tried to call Eli, but Eli's son answered the phone. Alan then asked the son to hand the phone to Eli. Under the boat, a Spinosaurus suddenly appeared and attacked them, causing the phone to drop. The Spinosaurus was furious and began to destroy the boat. At Ellie's house, instead of handing the phone to his mother, the son was entertained watching television. Meanwhile, the Spinosaurus's attack caused the boat's fuel to leak. The Spinosaurus was still trying to destroy the cage where Alan and the others had taken refuge. Suddenly, they heard the phone ringing, and the call was made by Ellie. Alan also tried to grab the phone, and after managing to do so, he told Ellie that he was now in the river on Isar Island. The call was suddenly interrupted because Alan and the others sank to the bottom of the river. Paul managed to escape, but the others were still trapped in the cage. Paul then took the initiative to lure the Spinosaurus by climbing to a small crane nearby. The Spinosaurus turned to chase Paul, while Alan, Amanda, and Eric managed to escape to the riverbank. Seeing Paul in trouble, Alan fired a flare at the Spinosaurus. As a result, the fuel underneath ignited. Paul was forced to jump into the river. After the Spinosaurus left, Paul appeared from the water, having managed to survive. They continued their journey. In the morning, Alan invited the others to hurry because they were almost at the beach. But suddenly, a group of raptors appeared in front of them. Alan told the others to stay calm. He realized that the raptors only wanted their eggs back, so he took them out of the backpack to return them. Inside the backpack was a reproduced copy of the velociraptor skull that Billy had printed earlier. After placing the egg on the ground, Alan blew into the velociraptor skull with a specific tone. The velociraptors around became confused. Moments later, the sound of a helicopter was heard approaching the location. The raptors then took their eggs and fled, leaving Alan and the others behind. Alan also told the others to hurry toward the beach. Unexpectedly, there was a group of military troops waiting for them for rescue. It turns out that Ellie really helped him by sending reinforcements. They climbed into the helicopter, and to their surprise, there was Billy, who was also rescued. The film ends with everyone being escorted home with the help of a military helicopter, and beside them, a group of pteranodons could be seen flying over the ocean, migrating to somewhere else.